Welcome to Objections with Stan Willis, live on location in Wisconsin. I'm Michael Morris. This is C. Stanley Willis. Thank you for putting the money out so we could take this show on the road.
Okay, fair enough.
I should say
We're the tree, though.
I know. Well, we drove it. This tree, it costs $80,000 to move it. We're not in Wisconsin, Stan. I don't want people to think that we are. Because I was just there a few weeks ago.
We could be virtually in Wisconsin.
If we had a green screen, it would be amazing. We could just have things on fire behind us. It would be great. Stan,
it's a throwback day.
We had talked about. I'm glad that the verdict is over. Nate and I were talking about wanting to like live stream it to get your live reaction.
You get my live reaction.
Yeah.
While the verdict was coming.
But the verdict wasn't coming out for like 3 or 4 days. And it was like, I'm not doing this on a Monday. It
could be like Geraldo opening the vault, man.
First of all, that's one of the best pieces of television I ever saw. That literally, what was it, 2 hours long or whatever?
That
and
was at least 2 hours long.
Yeah. And then when they go off the air, they're still trying to get in that vault to find some loose paper and some bottle caps, but they had to tell you that later. Right. That was like the beginning of this kind of gotcha journalism type stuff.
Well, I mean, it was a gutsy move by Geraldo to.
First of all, why wouldn't you go in and make sure that you could get it open in your window? It was a fascinating piece about Al Capone, like all these pre-produced pieces.
I'm kind of a closet Geraldo fan. I think it was. I
can tell you wear those fancy shoes.
I do. They're nice. I got them at Walmart or something.
Well, let's speak of a Walmart type of media. Your initial reaction to the verdict was what?
And I'm not surprised. I mean, you'd have to start at the beginning and go through everything to kind of really analyze.
First, there was the Big Bang. That far?
Big Bang. I'm not sure we agree, but anyway, we'll assume that's okay for now. I think the prosecutor. I think in this case, the prosecutor made a number of mistakes. A couple of which I think are egregious enough that
and we're going to talk about this, so don't give up the booty right now.
Yeah, I thought a couple of them are pretty egregious mistakes, but I think the biggest mistake that was made is that this was a political trial from the beginning. Never was it about the facts or about the law or how it applies. He was trying to make a political statement from the beginning. So
let's start there, though.
I think that's a fundamental mistake, and it's not what we want.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, we don't want a justice system that decides things based on politics. I mean, that's the pathway to fascism or communism or whatever ism you want to go to. It's a good way to end your ability to have freedom when you have political trials rather than really true legal trials.
Well, let's make this statement. So when this all goes down, and I don't remember the date, so let's just make it up. Let's say it was Christmas Day. I can't remember the day, but it was hot. I remember everybody was wearing shorts. When this happened, Joe Biden says that he's a white supremacist. Mm-hmm. The governor of Wisconsin says we are going to put him away for life. Mm-hmm. You make those statements without collecting any evidence, without reviewing any footage. So it becomes political in nature already because you've got people's career on the line and their reputation on the line for labeling this kid this way.
Well, right. And I think thinking back on the Bush, I think that the president kind of speaking out on legal things was kind of an Obama invention. I think he was kind of the first president I remember, and I may be forgetting something, but I don't remember Bush or Clinton or Bush or Reagan or Carter. I don't remember them having much to say about things that were happening in the court system while they were happening. And as a rule, I personally think that the chief executive should not be commenting on what's going on in the courts. I think that that's bad form, and I think that's kind of I mean, what that becomes is that becomes a way for the chief executive to put some kind of political pressure on the court system, and we don't want that. We want our court system not to be political. I mean, the reason that we have things set up the way we do, the reason the legislature makes the laws, and we want the executive to enforce laws, and we want the judicial branch to make determinations about the laws, and we don't want, other than the appointment, because they are controlled. I mean, the check and balance is that the judges are appointed by the executive, right? And the judges' rulings can be limited by the legislature, because the legislature can pass laws specifically to undo court rulings if they need to. But you don't want, in the same way that you don't want your court making new laws from the bench, you also don't want them influenced by the politics. Otherwise, you have huge miscarriages of justice, and that's what we're trying to avoid, is miscarriages of justice.
So let's go into the case a little bit, because again, we can just pick the highlights here. But the prosecution, and again, we are very astute on this show about the law, both of us.
Fair enough.
Okay. So when I was watching some of the trial, and again, I think that when you're watching this, you could see the prosecution literally, it's not, do I have burden of proof? It's, I'm going to get someone to convict this guy,
right,
no matter what. The examination of the guy, he's a lefty because he got his right bicep blown off. When he's on the stand and he gets him to admit that Rittenhouse only raised his weapon to shoot at him when he raised his gun, that's when it was over for me. Right. So you're the star witness and now you've blown it. I thought it was an odd thing that they kept pursuing that Rittenhouse was still a white supremacist who shot 3 white people. Didn't shoot anybody else, by the way. He could have sprayed the entire crowd.
I think that all 3 of the people he shot had felony records.
Well, the first one that he gave the eternal nap to was a pedophile and had raped,
right.
Was convicted of 5 rapes and 11 total cases. But that's the guy in the beginning, if you watch the video, who's screaming at him to begin with. Shoot me, because Rittenhouse his hand is not on the gun. Right. So it's on the strap. It's not in front of him. That's the guy who actually got shot. So you're welcome. You asked for it. But he's charging at him when Rittenhouse is trying to leave the area that they're trying to set on fire.
Right. And he was already in the ground, right? Because he'd already been attacked by the skateboard guy.
This is beforehand. So the first guy that he shoots is trying to throw a Molotov cocktail, which I didn't know was a real thing. Yeah. I thought that was only in Call of Duty.
It's just gasoline in a bottle with a little wick.
I know. Well, the second show, we're going to show people how to make that and how to make a souffle. Since you want to talk about making things, I think we need a how-to.
Okay.
So we're going to start with all kinds of cocktails. What pairs, right? What pairs well?
What pairs well?
Yeah. So with an AK-47, you have a nice Bourgeois.
Maybe a nice Chardonnay.
Yeah. You do have, in both cases, you have to let it sift a little and put your nose to it. But the first guy that gets capped starts chasing him, but he's the one throwing the Molotov cocktail at the building that he's standing in front of.
Right.
And again, the footage is all edited down to just show Rittenhouse running away after the first shot. And then the skateboard guy comes. When he's on the ground, the famous picture of this is him on one knee up, and his hand is on the rifle.
Right.
His finger is not on the trigger, like the prosecution. We'll get to that. Right. He's not aiming it. It's still aimed down. He's still in control of this. Skateboard guy hits him. He does not go after him. He turns when, I think his name is Grosshouse or whatever, when he sees the pistol, a guy with a felony that's not supposed to have a firearm, that has come twice the distance to be in this spot, who literally runs a blog about being a communist and a Marxist. He's down there to start trouble. He gets winged in the bicep. And then the other person, I believe, was the skateboard guy coming back to attack him again to try to take the rifle. All of this gets proven that this is the timeline. Each time Rittenhouse is running away. So when then the prosecution tries to make the case, why are you running? Which I thought was the stupidest thing. You have the weapon. Why are you running away from them?
Because they don't want to shoot him, I guess. I don't know.
But didn't you think, as an attorney, as a fellow attorney, that I don't even understand? You're literally walking him into a self-defense.
You kind of are. I think from the beginning, like I said, this was a political. They were trying to make a political statement, and so I think that they knew from the get-go they were going to have a self-defense problem because they had all the video, right? The prosecution had all the video. They knew what the testimony was going to be. They knew, or at least should have known, what the felon with the weapon was going to testify. And in spite of all that, they still go for high-level murder charges where the self-defense argument is going to come in, where I think probably when you look at the totality of the circumstances, I mean, think about, first of all, you have a city government that's supposed to be about protecting the city. I mean, that's one of the things, and they have a stand-down order for the police when they know that there's going to be a demonstration that has in the past had a tendency to become, I mean, it's the same demonstration that's been in other cities and has had a tendency to become violent, even though they keep saying they're mostly peaceful. You can't say when you burn an entire car lot that this is a mostly peaceful demonstration. And, you know, I've seen peaceful demonstrations. I've never seen car lots burned when that happens. So you can't make that argument. But you have the police have a stand-down order, so now you're telling the citizens, we're not going to protect you. So then there's this Facebook thing that went out that says, hey, come help us, right? So now what we want is a bunch of crazy people walking around our cities with weapons and no training. That's definitely what
That's what I wanted. Yeah.
So now you've got this you've got the police with the stand down order, then you've got people trying to protect themselves, but they have no training and they're out hunting. They're not, you know, it would
Aren't they hunting on both sides?
You know, absolutely, but it would be one thing if you're sitting in your store with your AR-15 and people are trying to come in your store, and because you feel threatened, I heard that too.
I'm listening. Why is something moving this plane? I don't want to interrupt you, but if something's in there, I'm going to be so pissed.
But if you're sitting in your store with an AR-15 and these three guys come in, or you know you have reason to think that they're going to cause you harm, and so you use force to stop them from doing that, I think you're on the high road there, because this is my property. So even if Kyle Rittenhouse would have been in his friend's property, you know, they're protecting something they have an investment in against people who are the aggressors. I think you're fine. When you go out on the street wandering around, I'm not sure you're any longer on the high road. I think when you're out wandering around on the street in a war zone, you have in your mind, you know there's going to be some kind of fight. There's going to be a conflict. You know that. You're expecting that. I mean, if he wasn't expecting that, he wouldn't have taken his AR-15. He would have, you know, taken his field glasses so he could watch.
Well, part of me wonders about him bringing the gun. So let's dispel the whole thing about the gun. The other part was
it wasn't illegal for him to have the gun.
That's my point.
And I'm not saying that it's illegal. But
I'm not saying that you are. I'm saying that a lot of people are saying he showed up with a gun as though he was hunting. On both sides, they were hunting because the guys that he shot were also armed.
Right. So I think, well, one of them's only one arm now. But
can you imagine if he was right-handed?
Yeah.
That guy's a prick. Have you looked at his Twitter timeline? He was live tweeting the trial. Right. I mean, just the language. We can't use it on this show, but when it's done, I'm going to write it all down. I'm going to have Nate put it up so they could see it. Yeah. There's words I didn't even know you could combine there.
Well, you know, sometimes people take things to an art form level. So, you know.
Well, this guy's the Picasso of pricks.
But anyway, so back to my point here. So what I'm saying is, so just take this. Take. Everybody's all emotional about this on both sides. And so whenever anybody says anything that's contrary to whatever narrative you've heard or whatever narrative you want to believe, people just have this visceral, angry reaction, and nobody's really thinking. And the fact is, this is a highly nuanced, complex set of facts that really, I mean, it's the reason why the jury took so long, and you can tell by the questions they were asking a lot about self-defense because they were struggling with the nuances of this and with the complexity of this, and that makes sense to me. And I think if you go with like maybe like a manslaughter too or something like that, that's not life in prison and all these things, but it's like maybe an 8 or 10 year conviction where if you're doing something that is you reasonably know could result in somebody else's death or injury, I mean, if you go to that, I think you convict him on that, because how can you argue that you went into a war zone with which it was basically a war zone with a AR-15 and you're wandering around the streets and you didn't expect that somebody might get killed? You can't make that argument. Right. It doesn't make sense. So is he guilty of something? Yeah, he's guilty of something, but he's not guilty of murder. And
that's the part that people are struggling with, I think, is because they're looking at loss of life. And first of all, gentlemen that got murdered, I don't feel bad for you because you shouldn't have been there, and you're horrible people. But we don't have to worry about you. My thing is he guilty of something? Yes, but what is he? Is he guilty of just poor?
Well, he's guilty of doing something really insanely stupid.
He should. Well, it's like when people say he shouldn't have been there. Okay, but neither should thousands of other people.
Right. So here's so say two gangs meet in a park to have a fight, right? And somebody gets killed in that. First of all, nobody's getting a self-defense argument in that. They all came there to fight, right? So nobody's getting a self-defense argument there. But second of all, everybody there, if somebody gets killed, everybody in both sides can be charged with felony murder. You're engaging in a felony and somebody dies, right? So the guy with the gun and all the convictions because he shouldn't have had the gun, he should have been charged with felony murder. He was committing a felony. He had a weapon he wasn't allowed to have. That's a felony. And 2 people got killed during the activity that he was involved in.
Is that the West Side Story defense?
No, it's felony murder. It's.
I'm just saying if a fight was going to break out and everybody started dancing, but someone had a gun.
Well, right. Well, then, yeah. Well, the West Side, yeah, that would.
Can we? And it has to do with race, right?
I guess.
Right. So. The Puerto Ricans, right?
Right.
Shout out to Puerto Rico. I'm just saying that movie's coming out. I think it's going to set us all ablaze.
It might.
And it's all tied to Rittenhouse. How do you feel about now every gun crime is going to be compared to that, to this case?
Well, I'm not sure it will. I'm not sure. I mean, this case is not a landmark case. It's only a highly politicized case. There's nothing about this case that's landmark lawmaking kind of stuff.
But people are not going to let it go.
There's nothing that's way out there. And the other thing that I find interesting in all this stuff and makes the prosecutor seem very disingenuous is the felon who had a weapon wasn't charged, as far as I know. The guy that got shot.
He was not.
He wasn't charged with anything. He should be felony murder, and he should be going away for life, or something close to that. Because first of all, he's already a felon. Second of all, he knows he's not allowed to have a weapon, but he has one. Third of all, he's in the middle of this riot, doing things that are illegal. So he should be charged. He should have been charged with felony murder, as far as I'm concerned. And he wasn't charged with anything. And he's allowed to just go do ransom.
Well, we know why, because he was working with the state against Rittenhouse. So we're going to absolve you of this.
So maybe they cut a deal with him for his testimony or something. And that's a possibility. The second thing is, I think Kyle Rittenhouse's mother probably is an accessory to whatever he was doing. I mean, I have children.
She did drop him off.
I have children. I'm not dropping any of them off in the middle of a riot with an AR-15.
Because you're selfish with your time?
Probably so.
All right. I want to clarify. A lot of people don't understand why you wouldn't take your kids to something fun. Just want to be sure that you weren't saying I got a golf game to go to.
So I think there's a lot of nuance to this thing that nobody's really looking at. And when you're looking at the actual events that led up to the killing, the fact that he ran away, that those guys should have just let him go. They shouldn't have chased him. That's the bad thing. So the fact that these guys get killed in that interaction, again, it's probably not murder. It probably is self-defense. You are allowed to defend yourself.
He was not the aggressor, is the way I looked. In self-defense,
he wasn't the aggressor in the actual events that led to.
But he showed up that he was ready for aggression.
Right. So he wasn't. So that and that's why I'm saying there's a lot of nuance to this. It's hard to say that somebody walking around with an AR-15 in that environment is not being somewhat aggressive. Is
it different to have an AR-15 in the court and pointed at the jury?
That's just weird theatrics.
I'm
not sure what you're trying to accomplish by doing that.
I didn't understand that either, other than it is theater.
But talking about the prosecutor for a second, first of all, he said to the jury that the fact that Kyle Rittenhouse took the Fifth Amendment proves that he's guilty, or at least indicates that he's guilty, which, I mean, first day in law school, you know that's not.
Of course I know that.
Of course you did. Have you been to a law school on its first day?
No, but I'm here like every week, and I learn. I teach people. Actually, anybody that walks by me in the hallway, I teach them about the law, whether it's right or wrong.
You are just wow.
Yeah,
you're awesome.
Well, that's why we have these stupid. We have to wear these stupid name badges now to walk around the hallways. I want people to know I do know something.
That's because we want to know who you are and all that good stuff. And
at all times,
nobody could ever fake one of those. Those are special. Those are harder to copy than a dollar bill.
Once we show people, we're going to make Molotov cocktails and fake badges to get in Willis Spangler Starling.
They're worth almost as much as a dollar bill.
I'm not wearing that anymore.
People might use. I mean, if you go to Panera, they might take that instead of money.
Panera, it's like because of inflation, it's $35 for a bowl of soup.
Oh yeah, it's not. It's transient.
No, no, it's not. I'm sorry.
January it'll only be $34.
Well, Build Back Better.
Guaranteed it's going to come down.
I interrupted you, but the thing about the prosecutor, the Fifth Amendment, you and I had talked about this last week. We were just talking to each other.
I think the judge, and I know the judge is getting all kinds of death threats and stuff. The judge was actually very lenient with the prosecutor because the judge would have been within his rights to declare a mistrial at that point. Because you can tell the jury to disregard that, but can you disregard something? Can you unhear something that you've heard? You can't do that. So the judge probably would have been within his rights. And then later on, he introduced evidence that the judge already ruled that he couldn't introduce. And there again, you at least are giving at the very least you're giving the prosecution all kinds of, or the defense all kinds of grounds for overturning your trial because you're disobeying the judge's order. It just I've never seen it. I've seen a couple people say that if the prosecutor were trying to lose this case, he did a really good job of doing that.
He's the best at it. He's the LeBron James of blowing leads.
but at the end of the day, I think if you go into this and he's charging him with a crime that is an inappropriate one for the conduct that was there, if he's bringing the mom in on some charges, if he's bringing the lefty in on proper charges, if he's got other people that they have, because they know other people who were there. If he's got other people who were there who they brought in on charges and this is really just about the law, then I think it looks a lot better, and I think he has a lot better chances. I think the fact that he was simply trying to make a political statement is what...
In an apolitical situation.
Right. Well, in a highly political situation.
Well, what I mean is the people involved are not, it's not their argument. They don't know each other. All the people involved. So it's not, I don't like what you're saying. They're making it out to be that he hunted people that were pro Black Lives Matter. He didn't know if he could have been pro Napa. It wouldn't have mattered because he was just defending his ground and trying to get away.
And interesting, there are pictures of at least one African American person attacking him He
Right.
didn't shoot him.
You know the coolest part about that? The athleticism to have your hands in your pockets and to jump kick somebody on the ground in the dark.
Pretty
I
impressive.
tried to do that, Nate, 4 times, and I can't do it once. I couldn't knock him out. In summary, because we have another piece that the following week you'll be able to hear. Your opinion of the coverage in the media of this.
The media is just whack. And it doesn't matter which. I mean, the media on the terms don't even mean anything anymore, but the media on the left and the media on the right were both so biased. I kind of tried to reserve judgment until I could actually see some of the evidence that was being presented to the jury, because you can't find good information anywhere,
Right.
from any source. And so, I figure the things that are being presented to the jury are much closer to actual facts than the things that are out here on the media. And I think that the media in this country is doing us a huge disservice, because they're so unbelievably biased along.
Party affiliation.
Well, it's not even really party affiliation anymore. It's this extreme kind of left-wing Marxist kind of thinking versus this extreme right-wing kind of.
I don't know if there's a term the same as you would have Marxist.
There's not really a. There's not. Yeah. It's just this extreme right-wing element that is clashing, and frankly, I think probably 90% of us are in the middle somewhere. But the words, which this would be a good thing for us to talk about at some point, the words, they've so messed up the language that it's really hard to have a conversation about all this, because you can't really articulate what's going on, because the words don't mean anything. I mean, liberal and conservative don't mean anything anymore.
Well, don't worry, because we're going to talk about that, but we've run out of time today.
We ran out of time like 5 minutes ago.
Live from Kenosha. Actually, none of that's true. You've been listening to Objections with Stan Willis. We'll see you next week.